So this is now, again, something for EXAPLAY, which I like most. It starts, again, with fixed installations, where as a vendor, you are also part of the responsibility. So one thing is to have a watchdog and this auto heal, but what we are missing is getting informed when something happens, so that not the client informs us that something does not working, but we, or if you are the system integrator, that you get first-hand information. So in EXAPLAY, you find something called Sentinel alerts. Sentinel is kind of a watcher who watches the EXAPLAY from the distance. That means whenever something happens, Sentinel will alert. So right now, that is an email. We are going to extend the protocols like Slack and Teams and WhatsApp, but let's now stick to email. But for doing so, you need to be able to send an email, and that's not easily done by a media server. So we connect now EXAPLAY with our VIOSO platform. The platform, in fact, it's the backbone where also Experience Design and our test pattern generator runs. So we just put EXAPLAY onto that rails to get the Sentinel send them emails. All you need to do is to have a platform account, which is free. You can just register, use, for example, Experience Designer for free. And this very account you need here to pair EXAPLAY with the platform. So you can give it a site name, like this is my flying theater in Abu Dhabi. And then if you have multiple EXAPLAYs there, you can group them. So we connect. Now we have to authenticate. So I'm using now my VIOSO platform authentication, pair EXAPLAY. And now EXAPLAY is connected. It means every EXAPLAY has now a connection state. Now let's give it a try and send a test alert. So now EXAPLAY sends a test alert, and after a while, I should get this alert delivered via email. This email I put in my profile in the VIOSO platform. So there we are. Oops, there's the email coming. Thank you. And so I got an alert from Experience Designer. Okay, that should be called something differently. Sentinel info, I get the information. Who is sending? It's Office 2, that's the name of my computer right now. I get information about the hardware, so I can identify which machine is this and so on, and can even see which show is playing. So these alerts, they are triggered based on what is important for me. So I can say, if the engine is down, send me an alert. If the engine is down and completes crashing, which should not happen, but might happen, I get an alert. But also, let's say FPS gets low, or my disk is running full, so I can get information ahead of time before the client calls me. So, so let's look at these alerts again. I can, of course, not just only see that in an email, but after logging into my VIOSO platform, I see this alert in a detailed way, or I can see all the alerts that have been issued. So for example, if the machine has been crashed, I can see this as an alert, but also if it's been resolved, because for example, the watchdog or the auto heal feature brought back EXAPLAY into a running state. So I get informed, well, something happened, but it was resolved 2 minutes later. And that gives you peace of mind. Okay, I can take time to look at things. So that's getting interesting now, because you are not on site usually if you have a fixed installation. So how can you verify that everything is correct with EXAPLAY? Well, since we now have paired EXAPLAY with VIOSO platform, we can see, first of all that EXAPLAY is online. So basically it's good. We can access right away this very media server that is running on site remotely. So for example, let's look at the service. And now we get a live tunnel through the internet on this very machine. And we see the engine state. So that's the view of the EXAPLAY service, where I can restart EXAPLAY, for example. I can stop EXAPLAY, see some of these logs. So the service is not very often used, but it's the first stop to see what's going to happen. And let's say I'm still curious what's going to happen. I can even open the EXAPLAY UI through the internet. Well, here I have also to accept that I'm now entering the live system. So without any middleware like TeamViewer or any desk, I'm now getting the UI of EXAPLAY, which is headless, so exists only as a web frontend. I now get this web frontend displayed on my browser from my hotel laptop somewhere else. And whatever I do here now is happening live. So I can stop, play, see what's happening. I can change content. So just load it from the disk. I can even add content from my laptop now to the very system. In fact, I do everything as an operator, but through the internet. So that's pretty much great for an operator. So let's think it a bit more. One thing is to access your machine and do some monitoring and some editing. But another big thing that bothers us and our clients a lot is how do we change content and how do we share content with all our EXAPLAYs. So for that, we added also to add a media library, which is a cloud library. So let's give us a pretty neat real life use case. Let's say there is an installation which should display every day a list of pictures of the day, like greetings or some weather forecast or whatever, something like that. We can do that completely remotely. So we log into our VIOSO platform and we choose to make a folder for that. Let's say pick of the day. So this is now happening not on EXAPLAY locally, but just on the internet. And populate with some, here, let's use some, I use something that reminds me on cool days, that is some Christmas pictures, just as an example. So this upload is really made also for big files. So we made sure that you can upload hundreds of megabytes and even gigabytes. Now this is online, so let's head back to EXAPLAY. And since now this is now my local EXAPLAY, let me just update the UI. As we paired EXAPLAY for the Sentinel, we automatically also pair it with the cloud. So that's the folder EXAPLAY Cloud. First of all, I can configure the cloud to say, save all the content in a specific folder, maybe on drive D or where I have a lot of space. And I could also restrict it on a certain subfolder. Let me sync that first of all. So let's say I do not want to see all the content, but just the pick of the day. So let me just initialize that. And now I see the content, of my EXAPLAY Cloud right in the media pool of EXAPLAY. And there are the pics of the day. And here I see my 3 Christmas pictures that I just uploaded in the cloud, downloaded automatically on the local playback machine. Now, let's think about what we learned with the watch folder and playlist. So typically, people want to populate something, and ideally not by accessing a media server and learning how to use it, but just populate folders and let the magic happen. And here's the point where we very easily can combine watch folders with these cloud features. So let's say we have a playlist, call this messages, just because these are messages. Let's say we put that as in a screen field that sits in front of a backdrop. So the screen field picture in picture is just nice for that. And let's say I do not want to populate this playlist by myself, but let a watch folder do this. So we add a watch folder, let's say wherever we had our cloud features, pick of the day, select this, and say these watch folders should populate the playlist messages. It should do that every 5 seconds. It should play. It should be crossfade automatic. It should loop everything. Just typical things that we expect from a playlist. So now the watch folder populates the playlist, and we now simply play it back, and that's it. Without touching anything in the playlist itself, just by configuring the watch folder, looking at the cloud folder, I'm ready now to populate this playlist from within the internet. So for that, I can always go back and drag and drop something onto that, which will then be visible on my web page, on my EXAPLAY. So in fact, the only thing that's now missing is the end user. Because right now, it's always the operator who installed or monitors EXAPLay who is master of the situation. But you know that there are always these kind of customers, I want to change the content by myself. And then problems usually start. How do you give access to a media server? How do you get access to the internal network? Which user interface you need to build that will then automatically change things in the show, but not change too much, and so on and so on. So we solve that simply by the internet. So the pick of the day folder is something that we can share. And the sharing of projects, you know, from Experience Designer. So on the same backend, we also share now this folder with our end user. So let's say these are picks of the day. It's the title. Let's make it a bit looking like the client with his logo. A description. Please put JPEGs here or something else. We add the recipient, so it could be the client or ourselves. Let me put in and a strong password. Webinar, for example. Well, and we can decide, should the client just add pictures or also delete pictures? Is there something where they should add subfolders, delete folders? But in most cases, probably it's all about, can they add or can they also add and delete? So we create the share link. And now again, I get an email, or I can already see the link here. So a lot of the platform is communicated via email. So this URL now pasted in a browser. This is an URL that is to be shared with the end client, and the end client needs to know the password. And then the client gets this kind of a generic neutral front end. And now it's on the client to upload files. So let's say the client now wants to upload fish content. Client uploads fish content. 2 fishes. Now all the generic will kick in. So we will have our watch folder, our cloud, watching if new files are imminent. Speed it up a bit. So now the fishes come, they are downloaded automatically. And after a few moments, the watch folder will kick in. Yes, it does. Adds the fishes to our playlist. The playlist is set to loop. So now the show is magically changed, expanded at the hands of the end user. And you do not give the end user access to the media server itself. And also by populating it via the internet, you bypass any internal IT troubles getting access to the local IP of this media server. So that's the full story of monitoring, starting with a monitoring, getting alerted to, well, if you get alerted, we are paired with a platform. So let's access through the platform, the UI, to work on it. Then if you can work on it, let's also manage the content online. To the very end, let's not forget the end user, give them something to populate their playlists. And that's what makes EXAPLay, in my opinion, pretty much standing out for standard media servers who can do that, but require usually quite some middleware like ISA-Arc or other tools to bridge between the media server and the end user. And here it's all built in, and the service VIOSO platform and the tunneling is provided by us as a service for EXAPLay users.